Dark Satellite Media.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. This is the biggest treat for me and him. We are called Red River Podcast. We're actually named after a Canon film.
Which one? Red River.
Yes, Red River Podcast is a radio station that they say in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So the Toby Hooper, like when Stretch is talking, she said, that's the station she works at. And it's funny because the three directors that we really wanted to talk to were you, obviously, rest in peace, Toby, but Joe Zito. That was the third guy. Like
Joe Zito, to the best of my knowledge, is in Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Not as a visitor, permanently. He's producing that's from what I know, very popular ER show in Egypt.
Wow.
In the Egyptian television, or something like this. But anyway, either he's in Qatar or in Egypt for many years, and this is a very successful show in the Arab world, kind of an ER medical show.
Do you keep in touch with any of the Canon people?
Toby. I worked with Toby in one movie. I was a second unit in a movie that he directed, Crocodile.
Oh, okay.
And I used to meet Toby in the corridors in Canon, but Crocodile's many years after Canon. He directed a movie for New Image, Crocodile, and he needed a second unit director for two weeks. So we knew each other.
Very cool.
Joe, I used to be in contact with Joe when he was here. And one day I went to a screening and suddenly I see him and his wife, she works with him. Hey, Joe, how are you? How are you? From Canon, from the days of Canon. What are you doing? He said, I live in Qatar. I live in Egypt. I'm producing a show. But the more I spoke with people, I understood that this is a successful show and he lives in Egypt, and therefore I'm not in contact with him anymore.
The mystery has been solved. We're always I'm like, where the hell is Joe Zito? Because to me, like, if you ask me, like, the best films from that era, obviously American Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, and Invasion USA. Like, I think Invasion USA is just so.
And I'm surprised he's not active in Facebook or anything like this. You cannot find him.
Yeah, you can't find him. Yeah, I know. So,
other directors from Canon, J. Lee Thompson passed away as well. Aaron is around, Aaron Norris. but he was later in Canon.
Later on, yeah.
Later in Canon, he's around. Maybe he lives in Texas. I don't know where he is.
We're such huge Canon fans. Even when you just said that you pass Toby in the halls of Canon, I'm thinking of, wow, what a building I would love to be in.
The floor of the editing, or it was like half a floor of editing room. Yeah. So we all used to edit similarly at the same time, more or less. So that's how I met. Toby Hooper. That's how I knew Joe Zito, Aaron Norris, Konchalovsky, J. Lee Thompson, Guns of Navarone.
So I was telling Brian, before, like, what my relationship with action movies, and like as a kid, I loved them, and as I got older, for some reason, like once they started to feel like a cartoon. Like you see the movies now, they're so full of CGI, and like I almost don't have an attachment to them the way I did with those early movies, like before Schwarzenegger came around. Like I was like Shokasuke, anything he did, I would watch. And today's his birthday. Happy birthday, Shokasuke.
Oh, happy birthday, Shokasuke.
So I would watch these movies, and this was back then when VHS, like you would buy a VHS and you were stuck with it because they were like $100. They were a lot of money. Yeah. You couldn't, right? Yeah, so I would have like Year of the Dragon by with Mickey Rourke. I had Revenge of the Revenge of the Ninja, and I would watch them over and over again. And what do you think about the current state of action, if you have any thoughts?
So from what I hear from people, and the same thing with myself, I hear the same sentiment that you are expressing. The action, the independent, but also the big action movies, James Bond, let's say, for instance, of the 80s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, they were all done in a physical way, with a minimal of optical effects, because there was no computer, no CGI. So the action had to be really performed on the set. So you had those people. Either we worked with Shokasugi, which he did everything himself, or people worked with doubles. It's okay, with stunt doubles. And so if something that Schwarzenegger didn't do himself, a stunt double really swing on the cable, let's say, really jumped from a moving car. Everything had to be done. And of course, then we entered the super movies of the superheroes and special effects, including the Fast and the Furious, let's say. Okay, the action is spectacular, no question about it. On the current movies that we see in the last 10, 15 years, the action is fantastic, it's spectacular. But there is a sense, you can feel it, that they are not really performed. People don't really, swing in the air, jump from 6-story building, and jump out of a moving car. The two cars really had an accident, and there is something about it. There is a feeling, and I sense it. Of course, I'm impressed by the new action, by the spectacular action, but you sense you miss the immediacy, this feeling. I call it, you miss the pain. You don't feel the pain, and I hear the same thing from audience. A little bit older guys, like at your age, that grew up with this action. Myself, I grew up with James Bond. I grew up with westerns, and where all the stunts were really performed and really done. And
that's what
there is now a going back. There is a nostalgia now to those movies, because the new generation, they grew up on video games, of course, and those new movies, they are kind of they come out of video games. And in video games, everything can happen. Lately, everything can happen in the movie. And a car can fly from one building to another building with a distance between them like 100 yards, and the car still making.
I know.
Into the roof of the other building. You understand?
It's almost like it's
not
music.
Realistic. It cannot happen in reality, but it's spectacular. And they grew up with this. But suddenly now they're a little bit fed up, and they discovering the movies from the 80s, the independent movies of the 80s, or either the studio as well, True Lies. It doesn't have to be a low budget movie. It can be Predator, True Lies, which were big budget movies, but still the action was real. And now when they see those movies, even the young kids, they say, wow, there is something that you feel about it. You don't have to be expert on mechanical stuff, but you can sense it.
I think you're right. It's funny. It's funny that he mentions True Lies, because I feel like that might have been my cutoff. Like, I feel like I watched True Lies, and then from there, like like around that era, and then from there it just got ridiculous. But True Lies was phenomenal. But growing up, you were going to say something, Lang, and I don't want to cut you off.
No, it reminded me of the way people talk about music, analog versus digital. There's something to the warmth of analog. It's like those old films give you that,
Yeah, we used to put the album, the vinyl, and you hear this little crackling.
Yes,
and rough sound, and there was something about it, and there is a nostalgia. People go back.
And that's why I love podcasts. I love documentaries. Like, enough time has passed where all these things get celebrated. And now another thing that I realize is, like, Google's like a big thing. Before then, I would watch Ninja 3. I would watch all these movies, but your name never came to me. I was always looking for Sho Kosugi or whoever else, or Michael Dudikoff. And then as you get older, like, you start looking for this shit, and then, like, as you get older, you were like, yo, this name keeps popping up, Sam Firstenberg. And then you look at someone's catalog and you're like, yo, this dude made every movie that I watched for like the first like 10, 12 years of my life. And another person who celebrated you, who we had on the show, he's from Long Island, like us, R.A. the Rugged Man. So,
of course,
yeah,
great guy.
How did you link up with him?
I'll tell you. I'll answer two questions. Number one, the movie business, the movie media, from the infancy, from the beginning, was the media of the star, not the stars, not the directors, not the people behind the camera. The people behind the cameras were always anonymous. They are the less important in terms of the audience, not in the terms of making the movie. So it was always the media of the stars from the beginning, from the silent era. Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, this was the face of cinema. And so it's naturally what you told me, that you knew the Sho Kosugis and the Michael Dudikoff, obviously, because we are in the media. This is the business of the star, the movie business. And I'll tell you, when I finished, I did, we're going to Ari. We directed the movies and we made those movies canon in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. I kept making movies all the way to the year 2000, but those movies kind of sank away a little bit in the consciousness of the audience. And then it started, I would say, the end of the 90s into the 2000s, they started to surface back again. And since then, more and more, I'm involved more and more in interviews, podcasts, printed material interview, documentaries, and so on and so on and so on. But the first man who approached me ever after the slump, was Ari.
Yeah.
One day I'm getting this telephone call. We were talking now more than 10 years ago, 12. And I said, I'm a rapper, Ari, and I have this little show. It was for one of the television channels. I don't remember now. And he said, can I come and interview? And I'm doing all kind of episodes about movies. Can I come and interview you? I will come to your house. So he was the first video interview that I had.
He is a real cinephile. From Long Island. Like I love him. Amazing rapper, and he knows so much about the movies. So it's funny, with a guy like that who, with podcasting and things like that, things like your movies will never die. They'll never die because you have someone being like, oh, that's cool. Check
some of them.
Oh,
I wish all of them, but no, some of them will never die.
You know what? Listen, we don't like every Metallica album, it happens. So,
sure.
But what I wanted to talk about also was Stories from the Trenches. I got your book that Marcus Siedelman, right?
Marco Siedelman.
So Brian Langen will tell you, do I read books?
No.
You don't.
I know.
Not happen.
But for this is the most research I've ever done on anyone that we've had on besides maybe like Brian Usna. And so I read like a lot of the book, and it's great. And what I like that you say about it is you wanted to pay tribute to low budget movies, right?
Listen, now we can now look at Hollywood retrospectively, at Hollywood history, not Hollywood. Hollywood was always there. When I was a little kid, there was Hollywood. When I was 5 years old, there was Hollywood. So, but as time go, we look, every period in Hollywood, there was the golden era of Hollywood, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. We are calling it now the golden era of Hollywood. Then there was the 50, 60, the golden era of the Westerns. Now we can see it from a distance. We can look back and see. So once, we were in the years of the 2010s, I looked back, and not myself, historians, etc. And they say, wow, there was a period in Hollywood history. It was the 80s and half of the 90s, the beginning of the 90s. And a certain type of movies, a class of movies, type of movies emerged out of this period, of those 15 years. They were independent genre movies, not only action, horror, action, sci-fi, low budget, independent, that were propelled, the money that propelled it was the home video cassette business. In the beginning, and you guys remember, everybody remember all the corner rental shops.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
So this was the beginning. So you said the cassette cost $100, but it was for them. We just used to go there and rent the cassette and bring them home in the weekend. So in the beginning, the major studio did not pay attention to this business of the VHS cassettes and the rental money. So independent company got into it. Canon, Coralco, there are many independent, Shapiro Glickenhaus, there are many, not many, but several companies that realized, hey, there is money there. It's not big yet, not big enough for the major studios. The studio used to make a movie, play theater, and then sell it to network TV. This was the business. They didn't realize that there is good money there, and there was good money. So there was good money. So this little business or type of movies thrived because there was enough money. It was not totally low budget. We were not like starving with no money. We had nice.
No, yeah, you guys definitely had some budget.
Nowadays we call it medium budget.
Yeah.
Because even then in the 80s we made movies for 2.5 million, 3.5 million. So it's not shoestring movie making, So we had money. There was nice money. And now when we look back, so this is now a period, and then it disappeared. And this was the cutoff line. You're talking correctly. True lies, because suddenly studios realize, hey, there is money over there. Why are we letting them, those little independent, make the money? We can make the money. So let's make the same type of movies that they are making. American Ninja, Terminator, the first Terminator, those kind of little movies. We can make them now big budget. We make considerably 20 million. We used to make them for 2.5, 3. Now studios come in, they make True Light, Predator, 20 million, 15 million, 18 million, and they cut off the small independent low budget, which basically disappear, and the studios took over this field of those kind of action movies. So now we are looking back at this period. I was part of it. The way it worked out, I did not make a jump into the studio system, into the big budget movie. And myself, plus many other directors, as you mentioned, Joe Zito, definitely, Toby Hooper, at least 20 directors of this field, Sheldon Leddich, if I'm trying to remember names, and now we have to preserve this to talk about it, to preserve it, to tell the story. Nostalgia. Some of those movies, of course, not all of them. There are hundreds of movies made in this period, but some of them became, let's call them classics. The classics of the period, either the classic of the martial art or the horror, the classics of the horror, and there are followers now, there are fans, there are followers who are looking and researching those movies and re-screening them either at home, But just before the pandemic, I was in a beautiful 35 millimeter theater screening of Ninja 3: The Domination.
Wow.
People came with costumes, with
Yeah,
ninja costume. So it was like a club that screens those movies from this area.
We were doing that too. We were screening stuff like where we live on Long Island. So we would pick like, we had a movie theater. So what would we do? Once a month, I think it was. Once a month, we did like some movies. So we would do like, all the
Gremlins.
80s, Gremlins, all the 80s like classics and stuff, the stuff that we could actually get the rights to, because it's just, these are the movies. You just remember them the way you remember them, and maybe someone who, I always talk about Halloween. I always talk about Halloween 78, John Carpenter, because if I watched Halloween today as a 43-year-old man, I don't know if it would have the same effect, but I watch it as a kid. Right. So I watch it as a kid, and that every time I watch it on TV, I get reminded, and it's like I go back in time and I'm like, oh shit, this is like.
And as a kid, you didn't know low budget from high budget.
Oh,
it
no.
didn't matter. The movie worked. The movie worked.
Yeah.
It was a good horror picture.
Yeah.
So when Marco Siedelman contacted me about making a book, his idea was he wanted to make a book about canon. Then he said, let's concentrate on the films of Sam Firstenberg. I told him, Marco, let's make it, it will be a tribute to the era. So what you have said, that's how it came about. It's not only about the movies of Sam Firstenberg, but they will represent, the movie I directed will represent the era, the genre, this little thing that happened in Hollywood, 80s and the beginning of the 90s.
And your relationship with Menahem Golan, like what I got from the book so far is like you work great with the team, and you're someone who just, it's like if they give you source material, you're gonna go. You were like dependable. Anytime they needed something done, for some reason, you're like, yeah, I'll do it, because I feel like you love movies, so you just wanted to work and make them. Like so. I remember so in like 75 or no, when did you meet Menahem?
So first of all, I grew up on this type of movies. I grew up in the 50s, 60s, so it was Western, mainly Western, Hollywood Western.
Goldfinger.
Yeah, Goldfinger, the first.
I love it.
Right?
I love
Dr. No from the beginning.
Yeah. Roger Moore all day though.
So James Bond but mainly Western. That's before James Bond. There were a lot of Western, and that's at the time. If you studying history of Hollywood, that's how the directors were at the time. Directors worked for the studios, and studios just gave them assignment. So even if you good, famous director John Ford, he was assigned movies. You go and do this Western, and you go and do the other Western, and that's how they did it. It was not the individual process like it evolved later with the renaissance of the American cinema. Starting with Easy Rider and later individual movies. Prior to this, it was machine. It was like an industry. Here is your job, and go and make. And I grew up in Israel as a kid, and Menachem Golan was an Israeli. He's older than me, at least 20 years or more older than me. So in Israel, there was no industry. It was in the 50s, young country just beginning. And Menachem Golan was the first person who produced and direct movie in an industry manner, really one movie after the other in Israel. So I knew his name. I never met him. I was a teenager. I went to high school. I knew his name. I heard his name. He was famous in Israel. And then I came. When I was about 21 years old, 22. This is 1972. I came to Los Angeles to go to film school. So because I love American cinema,
the year Godfather came out, 1972.
Exactly, 1972. Yeah. The Godfather came out the year I came here to America.
And you came and you worked on Lepke.
I went to school. So I actually met him here. He came. Menachem Golan just finished the movie. What was it? Casablanca musical, and he sold it to one studio here, to one of the studios, and he produced a movie, directed and produced a movie in Hollywood. It was called Lepke. And accidentally, I met him in some function. I asked him, I was a student film school, so I asked to join the production. He agreed, and that's how I met him. It was 1973, I think.
Yeah,
The movie Lepke with Tony Curtis, right?
The book, like the more I read, like what I really found amazing was, you guys meet over here, and then years later you're going to school right around the time that he's starting Canon, and you're working on your movie One More Chance with John LaMotta and Kirstie Alley, which is amazing. And I love the story of how you meet Dave Womack.
David Womack.
So and you guys kind of run out of money, and then that's where you meet up with Menahem again, right?
Yeah. So in the previous, before they bought Canon, I told you, I met him, and then I started to work with him and his company, with his cousin, Yoram Globus. But I was, all kind of function, eventually assistant director. I was assistant director to him. And about a few years later, 1979, I had enough. I didn't want to be assistant director. Anyway, I came back to the United States to go to school, like graduate school, Loyola Marymount University. And in school, together with David Womack, we made and produced a movie, and we totally ran out of money at some point. We didn't even have the 90 minutes yet, and we totally ran out of all the resources. We couldn't continue anymore. At that point, it was 1980, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus bought the company Canon, which was actually a New York production distribution company. They moved it to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, the company. They opened very small offices. So I told my friend David, I said, David, I know those two guys. I worked with them for many years, at least few years I worked with them. Let's go, let's see. Maybe they will give us the money to complete the movie. And indeed they did. They saw the material. They said, okay, let's gamble. They didn't have to invest a lot of money.
No, yeah.
To complete the movie, but they did. So we reignited our acquaintance. We reestablished our acquaintance. That for 2 or 3 years I didn't meet them because I went back to school. I left the.
And what I love about the story too is like, just from reading the book, like, you guys really wanted to get into movie making. So it's like, okay, we're not going to make any money on this, but at least we get to make a movie. So it's like just the passion of being able to do that. And, as musicians like me and him, like that's the way it is. That's the way it is sometimes. Like, we're like, oh, okay, well, we could make a record or whatever. And it's just like that thing, like especially coming from, like you said, Jerusalem, and then you're like in a different country. Like, what was that like? Just like coming to a different country? Like,
definitely. First of all, most of you guys are musicians, but let me tell you, most of young filmmakers are motivated by passion. They want to tell story. They know. You guys know that you can create music. The young filmmaker know that they can create cinema. So they are motivated by passion, and that's what not about money, at least in the beginning. But listen, definitely coming from any country in the world into the US is a cultural shock. This is a rich country, huge distances. I came to the West. The distances that you drive are huge. The cars, it was 1972. Everybody's driving a car in the West, huge cars. There is so much wealth, so much. The supermarkets are so big, and most of people who would come, even from Europe, definitely from other places, from Africa, from Asia. Wow, this is a cultural shock. Now, of course, we all grew up with American movies, no matter where you are in the globe. You're a Filipino, an Israeli, an Italian, South African. You grew up with the American movies. So we knew enough about, from a visual way, we knew enough about US. But it's something that you have to adapt. I came all by myself, no parents, no friends. 21, I was crazy. I wanted to go and study film in Hollywood.
Well, you got to be, the one thing about life, and sometimes I don't take the leap, but, people that take a leap, you got to be in it to win it, and some people are like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just going to go do this.
Right. And when I went to school, to high school, at least in Israel, because Israel is democracy, the US is a model. So we study history and all civil classes about the Civil War, about the war, the establishment of the country, the Constitution and things like this, slavery, the history of America. We grew up with the American book, Uncle Tom Cabin, Tom Sawyer, whatever. And we saw movies which are To Kill a Mockingbird, which are the heart of the American, the Westerns, the heart of the story of America. So we grew up with this anyway, because we were a democracy. America is a democracy. So not everything was foreign in terms of history, but wow, here I suddenly see the difference between the races, between the white race and the black race. We didn't experience things like this in the country where I grew up.
And you stayed,
you see those huge, in Israel, policeman is a joke, like it was in England. You can joke with policemen. Suddenly I come here and in the 70s, every policeman in Los Angeles is 6'5", 6.5 foot tall with weapon. Like I was in my military. They had more weapon on their body than when I was serving in the military.
And there's
things like that.
And there's something about LA also that you like because you stayed there, right? Like you've been there the whole time.
It's huge. It's big.
Yeah.
It's suddenly you're in a big city, 9 million people, Los Angeles, 9 million people. As long as you can drive and drive and drive, there are always houses. No matter how many hours you drive, you're in houses, like forest of houses. Yeah, so there is this cultural shock. You adapt. You either look to it, but there is an advantage. Let me tell you, because making movies or any other type of art, doesn't matter, music, writing books, theater. If you are a foreigner in a foreign culture, you have a little bit of a point of view. You can distance yourself. So I had this advantage, or maybe advantage, maybe disadvantage, being able to distance myself and look into the culture. So I cannot make the Last Picture Show, and I cannot make Animal House because you have to come from the inside to do movies like this. But you can watch other movies and other. So a little bit this movie that I wrote and I directed, One More Chance with Johnny LaMatta. It's a little bit of it's a view of the society, a certain part of the society in the city, in the urban society in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and you're a big fan of like what I like. You like crime stuff, you like drama stuff. So that was a good way to start. But then also like to fast forward to some of the stuff, like it's amazing to get in. Aside from the Octagon, I can't think of another movie. Oh, actually no, Enter the Ninja came out. So
yeah.
You got into the ninja phenomenon, which started, and then like the breakdancing thing too. So right. These are things that like really I know Brian was affected by the breakdancing stuff. And to me, the only time I ever dressed up for Halloween, I was a ninja. And when we would go, and when we would go to like the flea market, they had like in the 80s they would sell fucking nunchucks and ninja stars at that time.
You used to be able to order the throwing stars, the back of magazines. The Soldier of Fortune, you go in the back, you can order it, they'll mail it right to your house like a 10-year-old kid.
I know, yeah, completely. So let's talk about Revenge of the Ninja. Like, what do you remember, with that coming out? So it's like, what's funny? I never knew until years later that Enter the Ninja was first. I thought it was Revenge of the Ninja, Enter the Ninja, and Ninja 3, because it's a ninja trilogy, but it has nothing to do with, right?
So this was a little bit a matter of luck, matter of fate. My course, I was into making movies, and I thought that I will make movies like you're mentioning, crime movies, social movies, etc., social drama. So my path was let's make movies, and I just want to mention incidentally, when I was a kid, there was the Tarzans. Tarzans were big movies. Johnny Weissmuller. And he was the ninja of the time, Johnny Weissmuller, Tarzan. And he was exciting. This was an exciting thing for children like me, Tarzan movies. And here now I'm 20. I'm 29, 30 years old. I want to make movies. I'm a young director, and it just so happened that there was a producer. His name is Menachem Golan, and he's attracted to this new gimmick, ninjas.
Yeah.
Now there were martial art movies, little bit. Chuck Norris, Octagon.
Octagon. That's the only one I can think of.
Not many of them, not many of them. But there were the kung fu movies, the Chinese, the Hong Kong movies, and for certain audience it was they were followers of the Hong Kong movies, what we used to call kung fu movies or karate movies, they used to call them. But nobody dealt with ninja. This phenomena that was called ninja was a Japanese internal thing. It was not a Chinese thing. That's why it didn't really penetrate the Hong Kong movies. And from the best of my knowledge, there was a TV show in Japan, even way back then, ninja TV show in Japan, but it was local ninja. And I love samurai movies. The Japanese exported samurai movies, of course, Akira Kurosawa. And I watched all of them before I ever heard. And even there, you didn't see ninja. We didn't know. And then my path crossed this ninja thing that was at the beginning, the phenomena, but just in the infancy, Canon produced this movie, Enter the Ninja, with Sho Kasugi, and the director of Enter the Ninja, and he made it with the Franco Nero, which didn't work out too well.
I didn't even know. I didn't know he was dubbed until the documentary. I was like, holy shit!
Because
I had no idea.
Italian accent. He has an Italian accent. He's an Italian star.
I was like 5.
And the director, producer, the head of the company, Menachem Golan, did not want. They wanted to make a sequel immediately. It made some money, so they wanted to make a sequel immediately. And I just finished for them this movie, One More Chance. Yeah. So they just turned to me. They just invited me. Can we trust you to direct sequel to this movie? And the sequel was called Revenge of the Ninja. Sho Kasugi was already in before me. So when I was introduced to the project, he was part of it already. There was a script already almost finished. We worked a little bit on the script. So it was just my path crossed this path. We crossed each other.
But you took it. You took it.
Welded into one.
Yeah, you took that opportunity. You were like, I'm gonna do it. You're like, no way I'm gonna say no.
Hey, I'm a young director. I just finished one movie. I'm looking for my chances.
Yeah.
And I like action. It was not something that I said, I'm a comedy director. I'm not doing action. It was something that I like. I like James Bond. I like Westerns. I like World War II movies, American movies, all kind of other action movies, Bullet, whatever was at the time. And yeah, so I took this. I took it, I invested all my talent and energy and everything I know about movie making into making this movie, Revenge of the Ninja. Apparently, it was, kind of a success. MGM picked it up for distribution. And when a studio a major studio picks up a movie for distribution, it means that they believe in it.
Yeah.
MGM, and they saw something new. They saw MGM. Enter the Ninja was not terribly successful. It was okay. And suddenly, Revenge of the Ninja, they're opening it up in 800 prints, 800 theaters, the Eastern America, US, then the Western, with a major distribution, write-ups in the newspaper, etc. And suddenly it had an impact. And in some countries, the movie is not even called Revenge of the Ninja because nobody knew what ninja is. So in some countries, Germany, Japan, not Japan, did not play Japan. Germany, France, they invented other names like the Warrior because nobody knew how to chew, how to swallow this business of ninja. Later, as you said.
Later on.
You guys were the kids. I was in my 30s. You were the kids. And the kids picked it up.
Yeah.
With the Halloween dress up, etc., etc.
But even we wanted to be Kane. We wanted to be Kane. Kane was kicking ass, Sho's son, and it wasn't, I probably caught it on VHS a few years later because by that time, The Last Dragon had come out. Like, so all these movies where you're like, oh, all right, I'm a kid and I want to at that point, everyone, like, there was never a clean fight. Everyone fought with karate.
And this was the target audience, not intentionally, but it so happened that it became the target audience for those movies. Young boys, sometimes girls, not too many, mainly boys, but also girls. And this was the range, 7 to 17. But then there was the adults, 25 to 35, that also like those movies, and they watch these movies. And nowadays I'm getting a lot of email from those two groups, either the kids or the young adults who are between 18 and 35, 20 to 35. And they're writing to me that, we saw the movie.
I also felt like there, as big horror fans, we're big horror fans. I felt like, in a way, it was very violent, which we like, and the way, like, Braden was in a mask and he was killing the mob dudes. Like, it was almost like a slasher in a way, right?
So, I'll tell you, this was intentionally. Okay. When I was introduced to Shokasugi. Shokasugi is the real thing. He's Japanese. He's a ninja. He's not a ninja, but he's he's a master in martial art. He had all the knowledge about, including knowledge about the ninja techniques, etc. So he introduced me. He took me under his wings, so to say, and he introduced me. He recommended a few books in English about the subject. And then I realized immediately that this subgroup of ninja, which subgroup in the martial art, in the Japanese martial art, it's not the main. Samurais are the main thing, then all the other disciplines of martial art. And at the bottom of the bottom are the ninjas. They are the dirty guys.
I had no idea until I read the book. I had no idea.
In the Japanese mythology, those were the assassins, because everything in Japan culture is about honor, and the samurais, everything has to be according to codes. And when the shoguns needed some dirty work, they hired the ninjas. Ninja would go and assassin and do whatever dirty work for the shoguns, whatever was needed to be done.
Well,
but when I was introduced to this with Shokasugi, with all the exotic weapon and all kind of poisons, etc., I realized that there is an element here of mysticism, of mystery, of horror, if you would say, if you want. So I said, let's enhance this element, which is not the martial art. Martial arts are hand-to-hand combat. Samurais, they're taking out the swords, they kill, you see a lot of blood, you see violence. But here we have another element. And I didn't know much about horror picture before I came here to America. The first horror picture I ever saw in my life was The Exorcist. I never saw any horror picture before Exorcist. I loved Poltergeist, Toby Hooper.
Oh, that explains Ninja 3. We'll get there.
Yeah. So I was already fascinated by those elements, and I said, "Oh, this is perfect. Let's marry them together."
Yeah,
ninjas and a little bit horror, a little bit mystique,
a
little bit unknown, and they work together well. And indeed, so let's say I was right, because the kids liked it. It worked.
It just had everything. It had like crime. It had ninja stuff.
By the way, the green eyes of Braden, this is not in the script itself. There was I remember in the script, he hypnotizes her.
Yeah.
And we came up, we said, okay, he's behind the mask. Can we have some glowing eyes? So to enhance this element that we are talking about of mysticism, we took it much farther in Ninja 3, the domination in the cave. David Chang goes into the cave, and even more into the mystery but even this whole business with Shokasugi, with the fingers, with the hands,
yes, the fingers.
And when he goes to the temple and he breaks the seal of the sword, there is a wind coming from nowhere, and flapping his hair.
Listen to me. It took me probably 35 years to have a conversation with you. Like me and my cousins would rent this movie and we do the finger thing all the time. We had no idea. We were just, because we were so, I don't know what it was. We were just so all about it. And there's a scene in this movie that's like one of the best action scenes ever because it lasts forever. You know, when they break into into the gallery and then they go into the van sequence. The van sequence is amazing, especially the way it starts. What doesn't start off, but when Sho like does that leap and then he goes through the window. Like, I mean, like, what do you remember about making that? Because that scene is outrageous.
I'll tell you. So so here we spoke about ninja. We spoke a little bit about mysticism. We spoke about martial art and Eastern culture and Eastern mythologies, etc. But I didn't want to make this kind of. I didn't want to make a Hong Kong movie right from the bat. I when I read the script and I started to get involved, I said, that's not what I want to make. I want to make James Bond. I want to make Westerns. And said, can we marry it? Can we put it together? Yes, of course we can do, because it's up to us. And luckily, Sho Kosugi was like me. He had the same thinking. He wanted to become a Hollywood star. He was not about the purity. He didn't care about the purity of martial art into the movies. He also wanted a Hollywood type movie. And said, so let's mix. Let's have so-called, let's call it regular action, movies action, Hollywood action, together with the martial art. And here comes a couple of sequences. One of them is the van, which is not martial art at all. It starts with a little bit martial art, then it goes into a regular fight, fist fight, etc., with weapon, with gun, and ends up with a chase with a car, and so on. So I don't remember if it was. We prepared storyboard prior, in pre-production, prior to the filming, to the shooting of the movie. We had, for every action sequence, I prepared the storyboard, not only by myself, obviously with the storyboard artist, with the Sho Kosugi, we had a stunt coordinator, Steve Lambert. So the action crew together, we worked on a storyboard and prepared. And I don't remember if the idea of flipping from the roof into a car was in the script or we developed it in a storyboard, but it is in the storyboard.
Or the dragon.
And I remember, because we didn't have major resources, and I knew that to break into through a glass, you have to make a sugar glass. It's not, of course, obviously it's not glass, not real glass. And what Hollywood is using is sugar glass made from sugar, from baked sugar.
You hear it here first.
And I remember that I told the guys, listen, the prop department will never be able to create a curved glass. So can you find a van with a flat glass? The driving, the windshield is flat. And there was one Dodge van with a flat glass. And they look for it, and the transportation department, and they found this particular Dodge with a totally flat windshield. And of course it was done by a gymnast, a professional gymnast. The movie was filmed in Salt Lake City, and there is a university, Brigham Young, and we had few gymnasts working with us. But the flip itself, which is dangerous, it's not for a gymnast. Yeah. So a gymnast did a lot of the stuff, but Steve Lambert, our stuntman, did the flip and breaking in the glass, the glass.
That's the beauty.
That requires some specialty. So he was doubling for Sho Kosugi.
That's the beauty, like what we were talking about earlier. It's like you watch a scene like this, and I think that's what people, you get. It's like eating that home cooked meal that you remember. You're like, oh man, this tastes so good. You watch it, like even just rewatching it, knowing that we were going to talk to you, it was just great. And I love the Indian guy that just jumped. Like it's just like some of the action sequences are so funny. And but also Steve Lambert, like, did he really have that mustache when he played the cowboy?
No.
Okay, yeah, because he was I guess like
no, it's a makeup.
It was just like the funniest outfit. He looked like the guy from Toy Story. So
yeah. So even this sequence in the playground, it's not a martial art. A martial art technique. Sho Kosugi and Kit Vitale, they are using martial art moves, but the sequence is not really pure martial art.
No, but you break.
But they use it. Actually, in the Hong Kong movies, in the Hong Kong martial art movies, there is a lot of comedy fights. We borrowed it from there. But as you say, but the feeling with the van, I'm sorry, once again, the van, the feeling that you get, the feeling that it really happened. You know, I didn't know if we can do it again, breaking of the glass. I didn't know what will happen. 3 cameras, 1 camera inside the car, inside the van, 2 cameras outside, 1 moving camera, 1 stationary camera. Let's see what happened. I didn't know if it will break the glass. No, if you will be injured, if we can repeat it, maybe we cannot repeat it. And then we have the sequence that Sho Kasugi is dragging on the asphalt. He's holding to the rear bumper, and he's and this is like brutal. You can feel
brutal. You feel it.
Now, most of it was done, of course, by Steve Lambert, but there are portions with close-ups that you see Sho Kasugi really with the blood in his face and all his wardrobe is torn, ripped from the friction on the
bloodshot eyes.
As an audience, you can feel it. Yeah. You can feel it that it was not. You didn't have fancy Hollywood star just holding to a bumper on a piece of green screen, and the asphalt is moving on the green screen. Yeah, it's not really moving.
This was
stationary shot.
Like you said,
you can sense it. That's it.
Stories from the trenches for sure. Because also in the book, what you bring up is just like the spirit of independent, not independent, but like low budget movies where it's like, you know what, it's like this is like you learn to work like that. Like you said, you're like, okay, we can't have a curved glass, so let's find this one van, and you found it because you have the ways, and I feel like a lot of that, like in the book, what I got is like just Menahem Golan, like showing everyone that it's like, no matter what, we're going to get this take, we're going to film it. This is the way it is. He was like, he seemed like an amazing large, like the stories of Menahem just seem like amazing.
I don't know if you had the chance, you guys or any of the listeners had the chance to see the documentary Electric Boogaloo, the story of Cannon, then you can see the person in real, in true color.
Yeah.
But he was the right producer for those type of movies. He was just the right producer for this. He understood this kind of movies. He understood the taste of the general audience globally, all around the world. And he knew how to make a movie that will appeal to almost every corner in the world in this type of genre. I wouldn't let him, I wouldn't say that he understood the same thing when it came to comedy or to other genre. Definitely not horror picture. Cannon did not produce one good horror picture. They tried.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Come on.
Yeah, that's Toby. It's particularly Toby Hooper. But in action, in low budget action, they understood. He understood this business the best, and he was involved. He gave me a slack. He really did not bother me. He was very supportive, supporting me as a director. He got involved only in editing. He was not bothering. He didn't bother me on the filming period. He got involved in editing. He always came up with suggestions in editing room, how to better it, how to make a scene more exciting, more compelling. And he had good advices. And obviously, the history of Cannon. So he was right. He knew what he was doing in this particular field. Invasion USA, Missing in Action, American Ninja movies. In this field, he was an expert.
I got to shift gears a little bit, bring up one of my favorite youth movies, which is a departure from what we were talking about, but Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo. First of all, one of the best titles of films ever, one of the funnest to say, still is to this day.
Retrospectively, definitely we can say.
I saw it, I feel like it was on HBO a lot or something, but it was on TV a lot, and I would watch it every time it was on. And it's such like a musical, like almost like those older musical films, and it's got all of your favorite 80s tropes of, there's either like a ski resort or a restaurant or something that's going to get torn down and everybody bang. Yeah. It's just like Sam was saying about, like a comfort food. Like this film was for me, and rewatching it again in preparation for this. If you could talk about, how you took on a departure like this from what you were coming up on with the action, making a name for yourself. It must have been fun and challenging. And, you were directing a lot of large crowd scenes and stuff and if you could talk about that film a
Yeah,
little.
so my diet of movies when I was growing up, beside action movies, were the classical musicals. King and I, West Side Story, the main classical, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, the main Hollywood, the musical dance movies, dance and music movies. So this was part of what I grew up watching cinema. This was what I knew about cinema. And here, again, by accident, I was offered to direct this movie. Of course, Canon came up with the movie Breakin', which was just like the Ninja. They suddenly had this idea, not suddenly, but it was popular at the time.
Yeah, right at the beginning. Yeah.
Right at the beginning. And Breaking was a huge success. Huge success. MGM distributed it. They made so much money. So they wanted to do immediately sequel. And by the way, to the best of my knowledge, from what I know, from what I heard, this is the only movie in history that original and sequel came out in the same year. The only movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
They came
That's
out in the same calendar year, the two movies.
That's business.
So I don't know. There was a director, Joel Silver, directed the movie. And I don't know what happened. Maybe there was a dispute, something between him and Canon that they didn't hire him to do the second movie, the sequel, because it was the same group, the same trio: Shabadoo, Shrimp, Lucinda Dickey. And I already worked with Lucinda because Ninja 3D Domination was filmed before Breakin', but they came out in a different order. Breaking came out and then Ninja 3D Domination.
Why would that happen?
Oh, they wanted to rush. They wanted to, because there was a competition. There were other breakdance movies. Street Beat.
Beat Street.
Beat
Street. There were like 3 or 4 breakdance movies being in production right at the same time, and Canon wanted to be the first. So they did everything they could to come out first, and they did. So they neglected the distribution of Ninja 3. But I already knew Lucinda. So this was one element that maybe convinced them. And they didn't have the original director for some reason. I was already famous for directing sequels. So they just turned to me and said, okay, we have to do it fast. Would you do a musical? A dance movie. It's not really musical. It's a dance movie, but it's within the musical. Dance movie, I tell many people, sometimes they don't understand what I'm saying. There is not much difference between action and dance movie. Really, there is not much difference. Different culture, no violence. But every sequence of dance is choreographed and had to be filmed in the best, the most effective way. Every sequence of action is being choreographed. I don't choreograph the action. There are people who choreograph the action. My job is to maximize the impact of the action sequence and make it so that it will be compelling, exciting, etc., etc. Same thing with the dance number. My job is to make it exciting, beautiful, aesthetics, etc., etc. But I don't choreograph the dance, obviously. So there is a lot of parallel, a lot of similarities between directing action and directing dance movie. And I love music. I love music, and all my life I listen to music from morning to evening. I don't stop. And wow, what an opportunity to make. So I took it happily. I took upon me to do it, and again I was kind of a little bit introduced. The question was the culture, the hip hop culture, not the physical dancing, not the mechanical making of the movie, but to get into to be introduced to the hip hop culture. And I had good teachers. I had good people. Shabadoo. We had Billy Goodman was the choreographer, and not so much Shrimp. He was a kid. He was 17 years old at the time. And you guys, Michael Shrimp. Michael was only 17 years old at the time.
You guys shot it. You guys shot Shabadoo,
it where? And besides Shabadoo, there was a group. He was not the only one. He was the king, of course. He was the leader of the group. Shabadoo. But there was a group around him. Ana Sanchez, Pop Taco. There was a group around him, and they introduced me there. So we went to East LA, where this was the hip hop scene was at the time in East LA. we have a river in Los Angeles. Across the river in the eastern side, Boyle Heights, those areas was the bastion of the hip hop culture, the street dancing. So they
Is that the
took me
part
over
of
there.
LA you shot it in?
We shot it all in East LA. The whole movie is shot
It
in the places where it happened.
where
We used more of Boyle Heights, a neighborhood which is called Boyle Heights, because it's a hilly, and I was fascinated by the visual, because Los Angeles is a flat city like a plate, and here there is one neighborhood that has little bit hills and ups and downs, and you can see the downtown in the background. So
that's where that dance sequence was.
And this was kind of more Hispanic neighborhood. Of course, the hip hop culture was more breathing in the black neighborhoods, which are not far adjacent, but again, flat neighborhoods, Campton, where the music comes from, But those are totally flat, and you put the camera, you only see building. So, but it was the real place, Boyle Heights. The whole movie is filmed in Boyle Heights. It's a neighborhood in East Los Angeles where this hip hop culture was being developed, was happening. In the streets.
Where I think Colors was filmed later on, right? Because I know you had Ice-T. Ice-T was also in Breakin' 2, and it's funny because Ice-T 2 years later. Wow, was it 2 years later? Yeah. So I know it was 4 years later actually. He had the soundtrack for Colors. But yeah, same neighborhood. Is basically what I read. So
he had 2 sequences in that film, right?
Yeah. He was in the first movie, and he was. So remember, guys, this is 1974. American Ninja was 75. So 1974, rapping was not mainstream yet. Nobody knew rapping. What was rapping? Maybe you heard it. Maybe people who really into music, especially probably black music. But most of the people, it was like Ninja. Nobody heard rapping. And we had a musical producer in the movie. All the dances, the music was prepared ahead of time. None of the numbers are rap. They are in the spirit of hip hop culture, but not rap. There is no rap. And then I'm introduced to this guy, Ice-T, and he was in the script. He was part of Shabadu, a relationship, and he was in the first movie. I already saw it, and he came, and that's the first time I see rapping with the turntables and the whole thing, and he was so colorful.
And now you see him on TV.
There was another guy on the set, another rapper. The beginning, right in the beginning of the movie, there is another rapper, but he didn't make it. Ice-T was really the first rapper, the first popular radio. Later on, a few years later, he was all over the radio and all over so he was kind of probably the pioneer, one of the pioneers, the early rappers.
He's still rapping, and now on TV, a great actor. There's got to be a lot of people that you see through the years that you worked with that started off with you, and now you see their careers for sure.
And now it's already many years. We are now 35, more than 35 years since it was made. So Ice-T became Ice-T. Kirstie Alley became a big star in the TV show.
Cheers.
Right. And Michael Dudikoff became a big star, etc. So we saw changes, differences, things which are happening there. But this is a very dynamic field. Movie making is a very dynamic field.
Is there I know that you said Avenging Force was your favorite. Do you ever watch it, or is there a movie of yours that you just sit down and watch every now and then?
No, the truth is no, I don't sit and watch the movies that I directed. I saw them
every now and then.
Editing room a million times. Yeah. But what's happening lately, there are screenings. I'm invited to film festival, or in the last 7 years, I was invited to 5 film festivals in Europe. I told you about the screening, the 35 millimeter screening here in downtown Los Angeles. And so when I go to a festival, I say, okay, let me see the movie. I haven't seen it for such a long time. And it's beautiful to see it with an audience. I don't, to sit at home and to see American Ninja again, big deal. it's just for memories. It's not for a movie, not for watching a movie, but it reminds me all kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I watched them all when we did not long ago, we did the commentary track. I did commentary track to almost all of them. They came out on Blu-ray.
Okay.
So I was invited to do commentary track to Break, Electric Boogaloo, to Ninja 3 Domination, Revenge of the Ninja, American Ninja 1, American Ninja 2. So I had a chance to view them again during when we did the commentary. And lately, I see them until the pandemic. I was invited. I was starting. I was getting invited to many festivals all over the world, screening those movies, and then Q&A, discussions, introduction. So I had a chance to see them again on a big screen, which is fantastic. It's really fantastic on a big screen.
Sam mentioned Avenging Force, and that's a film that I watched.
Dark.
Just the
dark movie
the other night, very dark, and I'm surprised I missed it on the first go around somehow. Like but watching it then, it's dark, it's violent, great fight scenes, it's great shots of Louisiana, Mardi Gras, and you said you went to Loyola, right? That's down there, right?
No, Loyola here in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Loyola
I thought
there is Loyola
I know
University all over.
Correct. Yeah. But I love films that where where it's shot is almost like a character, whether it's like New York or Los Angeles and Louisiana and the Mardi Gras and the feel. It was really great. I really enjoyed it.
So some people know and some people don't know that it was written as a sequel to Invasion USA.
Oh,
it was not written for us.
I did not know that.
Here, now you know. So James Booth, the writer, the actor, the British actor and the writer, James Booth, wrote the script, which was called at the time Night Hunter. And it was a sequel to, not sequel, but kind of a sequel, let's call it sequel to Invasion USA. It was written for Chuck Norris, basically. The script was written for Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris probably read it and rejected it. I was not involved at that stage. And Canon didn't know what to do. They had this good script. It was excellent script. And we just came back from Philippines with American Ninja. And in American Ninja, we have Michael Dudikoff and Steve James, two charismatic characters,
so
charismatic
good.
actors, good bond between them, chemistry on the screen. So Menachem Golan, the head of the company, came to me and one day in the mixing room, we were mixing the sound of American Ninja. And he said, I have here a script. He didn't tell me Chuck Norris rejected it. No, it wouldn't make a difference anyway. I didn't care. But he didn't say, he kind of presented it. I have this script. Can you read it, please, and tell me if it's good for Michael and Steve? I read it overnight. A fantastic script. I read a good script, good action script with substance, with the subject, with the ideas. And I came back the next day. I said, well, that's a fantastic movie for Michael and Steve. So he said, oh, go ahead, you go and make it. Now, it was written for New Orleans. It's written, James Booth, again, a little bit like me, a foreigner. He's an English actor and writer, has a chance to view the American culture from outside a little bit. So he wrote this script about racials and etc. Racial problem, racial tension. And it was written for New Orleans. But now New Orleans is a very expensive place to shoot movies, to film movies. The Union Town, it's famous. Everybody knows it's famous. It's hard to shoot. You need to you need to bribe some local officials to make a movie. And they just finished the movie, The Big Easy. The Big Easy was done in New Orleans just prior to this. So the company said, but go and change the script because you're talking about the character of the place. So he said, no, go and change the locale, change the script so it fits any other place. Maybe we'll go to the Philippines. And I made the decision. In my head, I said, I'm going to be stubborn on this point. I want to shoot this movie in New Orleans. And, I knew a little bit about New Orleans from other movies. We saw movies, we knew about Mardi Gras.
I feel like it's the first time you were ever stubborn, right? I feel like
some points here and there.
Okay.
But on this one, I wanted really to go to New Orleans and to the swamps and to the bayous so I was fighting with Menachem Golan. Okay, by that point, company was busy with movies with Chuck Norris, with Charles Bronson. they started to make bigger movies, 11 million, 12 million. So for them, it was like I was bothering them. So they say, okay, go to New Orleans, just leave us alone, just come back with a movie. Because they wanted to, they believed in Michael Dudikoff. They wanted to bet on Michael Dudikoff. They said,
Yes.
so, okay, go to New Orleans, whatever, just go. So luckily, they caved in. I prevailed in my stubbornness, and we went to New Orleans, and it shows in the movie. It's exactly what you're saying. There is a color, there is a character to the story, and we didn't have to dilute the story that Jim Booth wrote, and he wrote it in the South, and it has this feeling with the Cajuns and with the New Orleans and with the corruption and the animals and everything together comes and it shows in the movie.
I think the villains are.
And I'm very proud. I like this movie a lot. The action movies that I directed, I like it the best.
I think so too. I think the villains are like the most effective in this.
John P. Ryan, what an actor!
Yeah, I loved him in Delta Force 2. And,
absolutely, and
right?
he was in Runaway Train. He was the warden in Runaway Train.
Yes.
Yeah. And Jim Booth plays the head of the agency also.
Yeah. Oh, but it's just like that. I'll tell you what, the scene that was the most ridiculous was the burning house, because it's just like you've never seen Steve James die in a movie, and then on top of that, like the kid gets it. I was like, holy shit! I'm like,
no mercy.
So all of this is from the script. We did not change one word. Jim Booth really wrote this script, and we shot it the way it was. We filmed it the way it was written. Maybe we adjusted here and there for location purposes or whatever, but the film was produced the way it was written. So that it's actually, we had to cut out some violence because we got X-rated in the first screening. The first cut was X. So I had to cut out a little bit of the violence. But I was lucky in many ways. I was lucky. The movie Rambo #2 just wrapped up in the South. Somewhere in the South over there, they just wrapped. And the special effect crew from Rambo 2, which were studio special effect crew, somehow they agreed to come to us. All this burning house building, it's a specially built set, which is built in a specific way so it doesn't burn down. All the material are fire retardant. And I had this fantastic special effect crew that just came out of, they just finished a major big movie, Rambo #2. And they did this all, and again, this is storyboarded. Every move is, of course, it has to be very carefully. So if you want to avoid any accident or any tragedy, you have to be very careful, and it has to be very, very carefully planned. So every shot is carefully planned, and I work together with them, with the special effect guys, and they nailed it. They did. With pieces coming down, burning pieces falling. The staircase is mechanical. Second take, the staircase come up again. We do a second take. Boom.
Even like the arrow through Michael's leg, it was just so quick. He's like, get him down, and then he shoots the arrow. The thing when you're a kid and villains go to kill the hero, they always take their time. So they're always like, I don't know, they're like, oh, we're gonna kill you now, but they never do, and it's like we're gonna do something.
No, he was a terrific villain. John P. Ryan was a terrific villain, and he's a gentle soul. This guy is he's a liberal and nice guy. And now, let me just come up to the point that you said the movie was not very popular, was not visible, and this was again by some kind of coincidence that happened in the world of making movies and distributing movies. And I believe that this was the reason that the movie was not that visible and popular at the time. Canon, after Revenge of the Ninja, Canon distributed every one of their movies through MGM. So they have some kind of a deal. MGM would take any Canon movie, the Breakdance, the Electric Boogaloo, every movie they took. But suddenly there was a fight. They came to a fight between Canon and MGM. It was over the profit of breaking, by the way. Breaking made a lot of money, and traditionally studios are not very happy to pass on the profit to the production company in Hollywood. So there was a fight about this. It came to a peak. The fight came to a peak when we finished Avenging Force, which was called Night Hunter Avenging Force. And Canon was mad. MGM were all kind of, I don't know, lawsuit, whatever. And Canon decided to pull out, to cancel the contract, this arrangement with MGM.
Wow.
And they decided they will create their own distribution company. And distributing movie in the United States is very difficult. The studios have, at that time, they had the experience of 70 years, 80 years of distributing movies and advertising and publicity, etc. And just to come from the outside, a small company, and try to compete with studios in distribution and relationship with theater chains, etc., it's very difficult, very difficult. So Canon decided, they pulled out, they took Avenging Force away from MGM, and they decided to do it by themselves. But of course, they didn't do a good job like MGM would have done if the deal was still going on.
Yes.
So the movie suffered from visibility. American Ninja was a big success. It was distributed by MGM, and they could have ride, Michael Dudikoff and Steve James, the duo, and just somehow to amplify it, which I'm sure studio would have done. The studio would have just take this Michael Dudikoff and Steve James, amplify their visibility, and come out with the Avenging Force. But it didn't happen. So, so this is the story. Behind the scene.
Yeah, we don't want to keep you. I just want to say one last thing. I mean, shit, we didn't even. Your career is so big; it's hard to cover.
6 months from now, we'll do another podcast.
We'll do another. I just want to say, American Ninja was the biggest deal. The trio of Steve James, Michael Dudikoff, and Judy Aronson. That was probably the best casting of any movie for sure. Would you agree?
I agree. So remember, in the beginning, we have mentioned it already. We touched on it. This is the medium of the stars. No question about it. Good script is important. Good story is important. But if the star of the movie, or the stars, the group of the leading group, including the villain, the heroes, the villain, the good guys, the bad guys, if this group is not dynamically conveying the feeling of the script, of the story, it will not work. So I'm just on top of my head, the Fast and the Furious. Not only the script are good in the series, but the cast, the group that makes the movie. So we were lucky. So sometimes there are fantastic scripts, but somehow it's the wrong casting. The hero doesn't fit the story, or you don't feel the chemistry between the good guy and the leading lady. And, we know about movies like this. Legal Eagle was a famous
Legal Eagle.
Case.
Wow, that's a good one.
Wow.
that's a good reference.
The chemistry didn't work. It just did not work.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes all the stars align, everything is perfect, and the chemistry works. The right actor portrayed the right character of the script. The love story is fantastic. The buddy story is fantastic. The bad guys are good. The villains are good, and everything. So I agree with you about American Ninja.
Cool.
We had a script. There was a good character. It's not a classic script, a classic story, but a good conflict, good and very good character of a hero. A reluctant hero who doesn't want to fight.
Great poster.
Oh, fantastic. I'll tell you about the poster. It's also a story.
Yeah.
And here comes Michael Dudikoff. From all the people we saw, it's in the book. We saw about 400 young kids for the part. He was chosen. Eventually, Michael Dudikoff. And here, it was the perfect match. The character of Michael as an actor, as a human being, and the character of Joe Armstrong, they're perfectly. They're the same character. The chemistry between him and the love story with the innocent, I must stress, the innocent love story between him and Judy Aronson is perfect. It just worked. You believe them. She looks at him with these admiring eyes that you believe it.
Yeah.
And the brotherhood between him and Steve James is not unparalleled in movies, but it's among the best. It's Butch Cassidy,
Yeah.
It's a great brotherhood between the two. You believe when you see the movie, you believe that they will give each other's life to save the other,
And
and it works.
And at
so everything came together. Good script, good story, interesting, American Ninja, but the main thing was the cast and the villain, the guy.
With the
Ortega.
two villains. Okay,
a couple good villains.
French accent. He was a big soap opera star.
But at the very end, when you're walking out of the movie theater as a 7-year-old kid like me, the very last thing that you see is, Michael take the ninja mask off, the music hits, and it's a perfect gap between
and the camera moves on his face.
Oh, it's so good. That's it.
From low angle. It's all calculated. One of the elements of a director directing movies manipulating the audience emotion. I mean, this is a big part. One of the biggest part of a director is to manipulate audience emotion. And so you have this shot, low angle, camera moves up to Michael Dudikoff with a crane up to his face, and he's looking up. Of course.
You mentioned you had a story about the poster. I'd love to hear.
The poster.
There were two. There are a few people involved in this movie, making the movie. One of them was Mike Stone, a famous martial artist that was involved in Enter the Ninja. Steve Lambert, the stunt coordinator, and I had two producers who worked with me. Not from the canon that the company assigned. By that time, they were so busy, they assigned producer. I had to leave to the Philippines to start to look for location, preparation, etc. And one of the producers, Gideon Amir, stayed behind. Michael Stone, at this period, was training Michael Dudikoff. Michael Dudikoff was not a very trained martial artist. And, the move. So Mike Stone was training here in Los Angeles, Michael Dudikoff, toward the movie, preparing him. And the company turned to my friend Gideon Amir, the producer, and said, we need a poster. Come up, what can we do? Some idea. So I wasn't here, but I'll tell you the story that I heard. So Gideon Amir wanted a big flag, American Ninja. So he wanted a big American flag. So, in the studios, there's this rental background. You can rent any background, mountains, whatever. So he found the biggest flag he could find. And he rented the studio, someplace, warehouse or something. They hang this flag behind him. And he rented a smoke machine. One of those fog machines that in the rock and roll concerts.
Yeah.
And they already had the wardrobe. So he brought to the stage Mike Dudikoff and Mike Stone. And there are two versions of the poster. One of them, you see a black ninja kneeling. This is Mike Stone. And Michael Dudikoff in a kind of a military pants with a sword. And one, only Michael Dudikoff against the flag, with the flag in the background. And Gideon Amir, the producer, his wife is a photographer, so she took the pictures. And it definitely iconic. I agree with you. It was. Yeah. But I must say I was not involved. It was not part of. I cannot take credit for this poster in any way, shape, or form. So they did it, and then the company, out of these photos, it was for promotional photos, not for a poster, I believe. But they saw that it looked so good, so they built the poster around it. They used it to build the poster. If you see very early posters of American Ninja, there was a guy flying in the air. It was different posters early when they were trying to pre-sell the movie. But then they took this one, and of course, and the rest is history.
That's it. Sure. So listen,
this poster is really fantastic.
This was great. Thank you so much for doing it. In 6 months, I'm definitely going to ask again because we got to get into like the 90s and Ninja, everything else. So thank you so much. Thank you for making movies that we grew up on and we love. And man, this was so cool. Thank you so much.
So thanks you guys for reaching. Thank you for reaching and asking me to participate in this podcast. And let me just add, once you're ready and once you're putting it on, let me know. I will help to promote it through all the social media that I'm connected to.
I'm going to put it up Monday. I follow you on.
Thank you very much.
I follow you.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
Give me the link, and I will help to promote it. I don't know if you're also using any photos or pictures. I can help you, but if you don't, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just send me. I got some stuff. It's fine, and then I'll hit you up on Messenger. Sam,
the internet is full. The internet is full, and you can go to my website, samfirstenberg.com. There are many pictures over there, many photos.
Cool.
That you can download and use.
Sam.
Terrific. So just let me know, and I will help to promote it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Talk soon.
Okay, guys.
Bye.
It was fantastic. It was nice talking to you.
Yes.
Same
Thank
here.
you. Bye.
Bye now.